Welcome to the part 2 of the 3D modeling of the Brihadeshwar Temple. In the part 1 of the video, we have modeled this topmost portion of the temple, and now we are required to further model this. Go to the edit mode and select this lowermost portion. And what we can do is we can extrude them along the z-axis. But before that, simply deselect the unnecessary selected thing, and with this thing selected, we can extrude them along the z-axis, just like this. Now select each of the alternate faces on one side only and insert a face and scale it downward and extrude them along the x-axis. Now again extrude it along the x-axis, scale it down, now insert a face, scale it down and move it along the x-axis into the negative direction so that you can get this pattern. Now select the remaining faces, insert a face, scale it down and have a subdivide. So now what you can do is select the faces in this pattern. Now extrude the faces along the normal for a couple of time, and with the second extrusion you can scale it downward. Now one more time extrude it and move it into the negative direction so that you can get this pattern. Now on the other side you can also do the same kind of process, or else whatever you like, whatever the pattern you like, you can change the pattern on the another side. So here I am changing some kind of shapes and patterns. Now into the UV editing tab you can unwrap it properly so that the texture will become proper and spread throughout the mesh. So as you can see, our texture is looking proper into the rendered view. Now add a cube and into the edit mode, place the cube right over here and scale it along the x-axis. Now we need to add the mirror modifier. So here I am adding the mirror modifier and turn on the clipping option. Now while in the edit mode only, you need to add a couple of loop cuts vertically as well as horizontally. Now with the face selection, select each of these face loops just like this and extrude them along the x-axis for a couple of time, and with the second extrusion scale it downward. Now I am following the pattern which you can see in the reference. You may change the kind of pattern what you like, but I am going with this reference image. So here I am selecting the alternate faces, and I am extruding them along the normals. This is the same kind of process that we have applied earlier also. Now with this remaining cube, I am subdividing them and using the loop tool, and I have converted them into the circles. So now we can play with this circle so that there will be some different change of pattern in our model. So here you can see this pattern is much different than the previous patterns. So here I am just changing the kind of shapes and pattern, which is also the very similar process. So I hope you will be able to do this thing on your own also. Do not copy the entire process. Keep on changing whatever you like. So here you can see we have almost finished the process of adding details on the wall of the temple. And now what we can do is we can just duplicate this object right over there, and in order to only work on this object, press less on your keyboard so that the rest of the object will be hide, and we can just select each of these faces right over here and press W on your keyboard and dissolve faces so that all the faces will be merged into a single one, and then insert a face and also bring them closer on the x-axis. And now delete these faces and also delete this middle portion and the unnecessary areas that are left over, since we don't require them, and we will be filling up the remaining gaps just like this. So here you can see I am filling those faces. So once the work has been finished, you can come back to the object mode, and what we can do is we can just unhide our reference images, and we can just simply duplicate this second object of the wall for as many as time that we want. Make sure that you don't duplicate the first wall, just like I have done the mistake, since it is having that back wall, and we don't want that. We want a continuity into the inner portion of the temple. Now I am selecting this object and going to the edit mode and select each of these faces and extrude them along the y-axis. Now once the extrusion has been complete, you can add a couple of loop cuts by pressing Ctrl R on your keyboard and adding some of the manual loop cuts just like this and bringing them closer to the first loop that we have added. We are going to follow this pattern of adding two loop cuts between each of the cuboidal shapes and bringing them closer to the main loop. So one loop on the left side and move the one loop just like this on the left side and select the remaining loops on the right side just like this. So we got the proper pattern. And now what we can do is selecting each of these faces right over there. And we can simply extrude them along the x-axis for a couple of times. And then follow the same process of inserting a face and making a cavity around that region so as to get this particular shape. Now selecting this particular object, and I am going to the UV editing tab, and inside the UV editing tab select all of these vertices and then press U on the keyboard so that your model will be unwrapped and the texture will be properly placed on each of the vertices. So we need to apply the same material to each of these objects. So here you can see each of these objects have the same kind of material. And I am unhiding all the objects. And here you can see our model is looking very nice and good. And I think we must stop this video since this is too much for this video, and we will be continuing the modeling of this temple in the next video. So till then, have a nice day, and I am taking your leave.